Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today and an absolutely beautiful start to the weekend. Bright blue sky, white fluffy clouds, and extra brilliance to the greenery everywhere as a result of us putting up with a solid week of cold weather and low clouds and slanty cold rain. that lasted for a long time, on and off. For that week, there was no guarantee, no matter when you set foot outdoors, that you wouldn't be caught in a downpour. Frieda and I were caught in a few of them. Oh, weren't we, baby? She doesn't care. But that mass, that just huge mass, eventually worked its way out. And this is what we get for our troubles, is a beautiful day like this. The weather today and for the next couple of days, I think, will be what most people would consider picture perfect, where it's nice and shirt sleeves beautiful during the height of the afternoon and early evening, but the nights are still comfortably cool. It's not the perfect weather for me. I have three standard rules. The music is always too loud. I am always hungry, and I am always cold. There were a couple of days last summer where I was not cold, and we're a long way off from that, but this is still very comfortable. Windows open to get the air in. Larry the lavender plant is flourishing. I can't believe I have a living potted plant that is flourishing, but he is. And boy, oh boy, he loves the direct sunlight. He hadn't had it for his first week here. There was no sunlight at all. Now he has it, and he is loving it. To the point where I'm actually considering a second plant. That shelf is the top of a long, low bookcase. I'm not going to put books there. So there's plenty more room there for plants. And this has not been a disaster. For the first few days, I thought it was. Larry looked like he was dying, but he rallied. So now I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about getting another plant, a different kind. I don't want another lavender plant. I want variety on that shelf. But I'm also thinking of an experiment, and I don't know anything about gardening. I don't know anything about plant growing. I've been getting, let's just say, a profusion of advice from gardeners out there listening to these videos. A year ago, somebody put the pot of a potted plant out on the front porch. And it's in one of those little, ceramic saucers, and it's a ceramic bowl that stands about 8 inches tall, and it's full of dirt. But it doesn't have any plants. It doesn't even have dead shoots of a plant. It's just a bowl full of dirt. I have no idea if dirt expires. I have no idea if it's been out there in all weathers. Do I need to replace it with new dirt? I have no idea. But if I were to take that pot of dirt, bring it up here to this shelf, and put seeds in it, is there any chance, and water it, of course, and fertilizer and whatnot or whatever, is there any chance at all that those seeds would grow into something? There's nothing at all to be lost from me experimenting. I'm halfway tempted to try it and just see. I mean, that thing is just sitting out there anyway. But the thing is, it's been sitting out there for well over a year. And a part of me is thinking, well, it's a pot of earth that's been sitting out there for well over a year. Surely if it could grow something, it would be growing something already. Don't birds drop seeds all over the place? There's stuff growing everywhere here. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any idea. But I'm thinking about giving that a try, in addition to another store-bought plant. I have been attuned to the possibility of a philodendron. And I'm thinking that might be the next store-bought plant. But who knows what I could grow in that pot? I'm thinking about giving that a try. If this actually turns out to be the baby steps introduction of Steve to growing things, it will prove that all it required for me to be involved in this process was that the process not involve stooping. And this doesn't. This is right at my hip. This shelf is right at my hip. But anyway, let's look at the mail here. And the first thing is not a package. It's a periodical in a plastic cover. I'm very happy about this, because this has been going wrong for a few months. I finally get to show you something that I talk about on this channel all the time. And that is my newspaper in northern Georgia, Smoke Signals, Big Canoe News. This is my newspaper. I'll block the bean. Hi, baby. Oh, no. She thinks I'm a loser. So she often turns away from me when I do that, except when she's drowsy. When it's late at night and she's drowsy and I do that sort of cuddling with her, suddenly the little hand is coming out like here, the head is snuggling here. Suddenly that's a totally different reaction. But this is the newspaper that I always talk about. on this channel. This is a monthly newspaper, several sections, as you can see, that is printed in northern Georgia. And through a strange and wonderful series of events, I became their book section editor, which is a job that I've held in many newspapers in the American Midwest, but a long time ago, half a century ago, more than half a century ago. Never in a million years did I think that I would have that job again. They don't, as an old friend of mine said when it happened, they don't drop off trees. Even for a newspaper as small as this, they don't drop off trees. And in addition to that, even better, I was assuming, I guess in the back of my mind, that if it ever happened again, I would be what I mostly have been, which is an arts section editor. Arts and entertainment, living, whatever you want to call it. Most newspapers have an arts section. Your local newspaper probably has an arts section or an arts subsection, where it's, here's a local poetry reading, here's a local theater event, here's some this, that, or the other thing, maybe every once in a while a book review. Even the legitimate C list of American newspapers, actual, ad-supported, 100-year-old legendary newspapers barely run any book coverage at all. Barely any at all. In the B list or the C list, they barely have any at all. And I was expecting that if this ever happened to me again, that's what it would be. And I would be juggling, that sort of thing. But that didn't happen. Because Smoke Signals, Big Canoe News, has a dedicated book section. Just books. They have an art section. But they also have, isn't this a lovely thing? Look at how well designed this is. Just incredibly well designed. But let's show you the actual thing involved. See, one of the sections that you get in your paper is arts and entertainment. All sorts of stories there. Just the sort of thing that you would think very well put together, a very professionally designed thing. There is also a section about living. Just ordinary, everyday stories that aren't politics. They aren't sports or recreation or anything like that. They're just that. But there's also a news section. The very first section is news. And a lot of the news section is local. But if you open the news section and you flip your way through, you eventually get to my playpen, the books section. Look at this. It's 2 full pages in color of books, of book coverage. Isn't that amazing? That is just incredible. I do a column of new releases for the month, every month, and I have also taken to doing a full-length book review as well. Here I do a review of Jonathan Egg's new biography of Martin Luther King. And then there are other reviews and also sometimes a guest column. In this issue, we have the very first column by a book tutor, Liam of Liam's Lyceum. We even called his column Liam's Lyceum, where he talks about fantasy novels, a roundup of fantasy novels that he's read recently. Nice, generous amount of Liam's prose. So if you've been watching his channel, if you've been watching his Liam's Leapings, where he rounds up his weekly events and his weekly stuff or whatnot, in one of his recent videos, he mentions, a trifle cryptically, that he wrote a column for a newspaper. Okay. And you can go and read that if you want. How you're going to go and read that if you want, I have no idea, since neither the column nor the paper is identified. But nevertheless, this is what it is, and this is where it is. It's in the books section of Big Canoe News. How lovely. And now I want you to take a look here at how well designed this is. Notice you've got the book's cover, you've got a beautiful layout, you've got the drop letter, and you've also got the book's indicia there underneath it. This does not look like a small newspaper, a little small town newspaper. This doesn't look like that at all. This looks every bit as good as the full-color print newspaper books coverage that you get in the Washington Post. But it's not the Washington Post. It's a tiny paper in northern Georgia. Could not be happier about this. Could not be any prouder to be part of the fun of this. And also, I mean, it's a great deal of fun, don't get me wrong, and it's going to be a great deal of fun to read through this issue. We had a wee bit of trouble with the mail people, so that I wasn't quite getting my issues of Big Canoe News, even though I'm on the masthead. But it's going to be a great deal of fun to read it. But it's also always going to bring an extra smile to my face, because sometimes life does this, and you never know when it's going to happen. Sometimes you get a genuinely pleasant thing that happens to you out of the blue. This came out of the blue. In a perfectly chain reaction series of happenstance that has landed me to a job I never thought I would have again. So actually, that is kind of the theme of my life in the 21st century, is that I am back to being a book reviewer, back to being an editor, back to being a columnist, all these things that I did when your parents were children. And now they've all managed to come back to me. I am a for-pay print section book editor for a newspaper. That is just incredible. Here, let me show it to you again, because I never tire of looking at it because I'm so proud of it. Let me find this section. This has many sections. You could spread this across the floor like you do with the Sunday Times. I never tire of showing this because I am just so proud of it. This is me. This is my book section. I am the editor of this book section. How utterly incredible. So there you go. That'll start us off for the mail today. My pride and joy, the apple of my eye. If you want to get this paper on your doorstep, you just go to Big Canoe and subscribe. I think it's online. I think searching for Smoke Signals or Big Canoe will get you there. And whether or not you find yourself all that interested in the local news, my book section is not local. I don't believe there's any such thing as a local reader. My book section was always meant to be a very small, perhaps the smallest in the country, but a very small but very corresponding version of the bigger new release sections that you get in bigger newspapers. And I think it's really good. Naturally, I think so. So that's the periodical, is Big Canoe News. And then we have 2 packages. No boxes, but the second package is really doing duty. It's really heavy. We'll do the little package first and see what we have here. What is this first one? Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Great. This, I didn't know this was coming. This is by Sujata Massey. This comes out in, are you a summer release? July. This is the new Perveen mystery novel. This is The Mistress of Bhatia House. They always have this cover. These are set in Mahatma Gandhi's India, the India of the early part of the 20th century. They're wonderful. This whole series is wonderful. Let's see here. Sujata Massey's Perveen mystery novels have stacked awards and accolades for their richly detailed historical research, clever mystery plots, and breathtaking settings. Also for the main character, who's an incredibly good creation. Despite a century and several oceans distance from our own time and place, these novels have also intensifying imperatives drawn from the modern world. Okay, so the setting of this book, which comes out in July, I strongly recommend this series. If you're looking for a new murder mystery series, especially historical murder mystery series, you really, in the present market, you really can't do better than this series. As I'm sure that a lot of you will sing out its praises. I don't know of anybody who's read the first one in the series, for instance, and not loved it. So the setting of this one is India, 1922. Perveen Mystery is the only female lawyer in Bombay, a city where child mortality is high, birth control is unavailable, and very few women have ever seen a doctor. Perveen is attending a lavish fundraiser for a new women's hospital specializing in maternal health issues when she witnesses an accident. The grandson of an influential businessman catches fire. But a servant, his young Aya, Sunada, rushes to save him, selflessly putting herself in harm's way. Later, Perveen learns that Sunanda, who's still ailing from her burns, has been arrested on trumped-up charges made by a man who doesn't seem to exist. Perveen cannot stand by while Sunanda languishes in jail with no hope of justice. She takes Sunanda as a client, even inviting her to live at the mystery home in Bombay's Dada Parsi colony. But the joint family household is already full of tension. Perveen's father worries about their law firm taking so much personal responsibility for a client. Her brother and sister-in-law are struggling to cope with their new baby. Perveen herself is going through personal turmoil as she navigates a taboo relationship with a handsome former civil service officer. Don't let this put you off, though. All of that refers to events that have been in earlier books, but don't let it put you off. This author really keeps you in mind for catching you up with what's going on. When the hospital's chief donor suddenly dies, Miriam Penkar, a Jewish Indian obstetrician, and Sunanda become suspects. Pervine's original case spirals into a complex investigation, taking her into the Gujarati strongholds of Kalbadevi and Ghatkopar, and up the coast to Juhu Beach, where a decadent Nawab lives with his Australian trophy wife. Then a second fire erupts, and Pervine realizes how much is at stake. Has someone powerful framed Sunanda to cover up another crime? Will Pervine be able to prove Sunanda's innocence without endangering her own family? Fantastic. Just fantastic. So we have, the Christian Science Monitor calls it fantastic. We have, the back is all blurbs from this, and I imagine that the inside will be all blurbs as well. Just a ton of... Yeah, okay, so the Pervine Mystery Series starts with The Widows of Malabar Hill, goes on to the Sadabar Moonstone, and then the Bombay Prince, which is the last one. And now we have a new one coming out this summer. We've got a map, a pertinent map of India and Bombay. Fantastic. Okay, I should stop saying that word. All right, so this comes out in July. A complex murder mystery. These are wonderful historical murder mysteries. Oh, baby, are you licking? Are you licking? Poor baby. What's the matter, baby? Huh? What's the matter? She got a little bit overheated on our walk today, just a touch. But she's recovering. She's bouncing back well. I'm gonna have to figure that out all over again. What her limits are of her heat tolerance and all that sort of stuff. Probably it will mean long walks first thing in the morning. That's probably a good idea, a good habit to get into anyway for the whole of the summer. I think this summer is going to be unbelievably brutal. In America, in Europe, all over the world, I think it's going to be unbelievably brutal. So probably changing our habits. So she's very much a creature of habit. She notices what time it is and when things are going to happen. Even though we can talk about it, she's still a creature of habit. I think probably slowly shifting our habits so that the long walk is first thing in the morning is probably a good idea. Don't you think, baby? There's the baby. You're so pretty. You are. You're so pretty. But anyway, let's do the next package, which is huge. It's a gigantic, heavy thing. It cannot possibly be just one book. It's got to be a whole bunch of things. Oh, okay. Well, one of the books is huge. There are only 2 books in here. One of them is huge. I wasn't expecting that. Let's see what we have here. Oh my, oh goodness gracious. Oh goodness. All right. One of these things is huge and one of them is tiny. But they're the same author. How wonderful. All right. The first one is The Battle of Malden. This is J.R.R. Tolkien. A new, very lovely edition of Tolkien there. That is just fantastic. So this is edited by Peter Grybauskis. And it is The Battle of Malden together with the Homecoming of Bernoth. So these are, let me show you. These are translations with notes by the editor. Oh God, are we going to get Frieda Yoga? Are you going to give us Frieda Yoga, baby? You know they want that more than anything. Yeah. Hi, little one. How you doing? You're so pretty. You're so sweet. Are you going to come down here, babe? You're just going to sit behind my head like the sword of Damocles, the schnauzer of Damocles. Frieda, you can't just sit behind my head like that. Why don't you come down here? There you go. Oh, there you go. Well, that makes me feel better because I did another segment of the Micah dialogues today where I had a Zoom conversation with Micah Cummins, and right before we started recording, Frieda did Frieda Yoga, and it was just for his eyes only. I was feeling terrible about that, but now you got your Frieda Yoga. So anyway, let's read what this is. Look at how lovely this is, though. This is just lovely. Let's see here. In 991 AD, that is AD 991, it's possessive. So the AD comes first. The BC comes after, but the AD comes first. And AD stands for Anno Domini, which translates to the year of our Lord, and the Lord is Jesus Christ. Okay, but it's not. That's a common mistake, but it's AD and then the year. In 991 AD, Vikings. Oh goodness gracious! Okay, this is the first line of the Dust Jacket, and this is a finished copy. So this is what you're going to see in bookstores, and Vikings is not capitalized. Let's just push on. Vikings attacked an Anglo-Saxon defense fort led by their duke, Bjorntoth, resulting in brutal fighting along the banks of the River Blackwater near Malden in Essex. The attack is widely considered one of the defining conflicts in the 10th century England and is immortalized in the poem The Battle of Malden, which is in all of my Old English poetry collections. Written shortly after the battle, the poem now survives only in a 325-line fragment, but its value to today is incalculable, not just as an heroic tale, but in vividly expressing the lost language of our ancestors and celebrating ideals of loyalty and friendship. Okay. Our ancestors? That's not many people will call them ancestors. Well, anyway, J.R.R. Tolkien considered the Battle of Malden, quote, the last surviving fragment of an ancient English heroic minstrelsy. It would inspire him to compose, during the 1930s, his own dramatic verse dialogue, the homecoming of how would we say this name? Bjornoth? Which imagines the aftermath of the great battle when two of Bjornoth's retainers come to retrieve their duke's body. Leading Tolkien scholar Peter Grabowskis presents for the very first time Tolkien's own prose translation of the Battle of Malden, together with the definitive treatment of the homecoming of Bjornoth, and its accompanying essays, also included and never before published in Tolkien's bravura lecture, The Tradition of Versification in Old English. Okay. Wow. All right. Yes. Okay, so look, you get Tolkien's treatment of the poem and a long discussion and notes on the poem, on one poem, then Tolkien's treatment of another poem, introduction, long notes on that, and then the third section, look at how long that is appendices, including essays. So what do we get here? On English prosody, the tradition of versification in Old English, alliteration on G in the Battle of Malden, an early homecoming in rhyme. Oh, these are great. You'd have to look high and low to find these otherwise. Fantastic. Illuminated with insightful notes and commentary, the editor has produced a definitive critical edition of these works and argues compellingly that, Beowulf accepted, the Battle of Malden may well have been the Old English poem that most influenced Tolkien's fiction, most dramatically within the pages of The Lord of the Rings. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So that is fantastic. You get everything in here. Plus lots of footnotes all throughout. Great. Fantastic. And the other book that was in this package is huge. This is enormous. I had no idea this was going to be this big. This is also Tolkien. The editor here is not Peter Grabowskis, but instead John Rateliff. And it is The History of the Hobbit. There is the Shire. Look at the size of this thing. We put 5 of these things in here. That is enormous and very beautiful, of course. Look at that. Nothing to impede the cover. Just lovely. Absolutely lovely. All right, so what have we got here? I don't have paperwork for either one of these, but this is much bigger than I thought it would be. Let's see. The Hobbit was first published on the 21st of September, 1937. Like its sequel, The Lord of the Rings, it is a story that grew in the telling, and many characters and plot threads in the published text are quite different from the story J.R.R. Tolkien first wrote to read aloud to his young sons as one of their fireside reads. Together in one volume, The History of the Hobbit presents the complete text of the manuscript of The Hobbit, accompanied by the editor's lively and informative account of how the book came to be written and published. Recording the numerous changes made to the story both before and after publication, the editor examines chapter by chapter why those changes were made and how they reflect Tolkien's ever-growing concept of Middle-earth. As well as reproducing the original version of one of the world's most popular novels, both in its own merits and as the foundation for The Lord of the Rings, this book includes many little-known illustrations and draft maps for The Hobbit by Tolkien himself. Also featured are extensive commentaries on the date and composition, how Tolkien's professional and early mythological writings influenced the story, and the imaginary geography he created, and how Tolkien came to revise the book years after publication to accommodate events in Lord of the Rings, because he went backwards and fixed a lot of the stuff that was in it after he'd written his epic. Endorsed by Christopher Tolkien as a companion to his essential 12-volume The History of Middle-earth, this thoughtful and exhaustive examination of one of the most treasured stories in English literature offers fascinating new insights for those who have grown up with this enchanting tale and will delight any who are about to enter Bilbo's round door for the first time. Okay, but that second part I doubt. Maybe this book will prove me wrong, but I doubt that this is the way to encounter the Hobbit. I'm sure that I'd be willing to bet that even you Tolkien fans would say you don't want to encounter the Hobbit this way, in a gigantic, exhaustive, critical analysis comparing it to its original draft. You want to pick up an old paperback of the Hobbit and encounter it that way. But this is lovely. It has the full color cover rounding about. It's got the paper or the cloth bookmark, and it has get you here, these illustrations all throughout, most of which I bet have never been seen before. Well, this one has been. But a lot of these others probably, again, you would have to go far and wide to find these things in some collection elsewhere. Instead, here they all are. Oh, how amazing. What an exhaustive treatment this is. Good Lord. So you get notes at the end of every chapter that just exhaustively go over what the published version is like, what the original version is like, plus a long introduction. Wow. Just, wow, that is amazing. Look at this. There are no real end papers to speak of, but the frontispiece is parchment in Tolkien's own hand, with a finger pointing to Mount Doom there. And on the other side, some Tolkien calligraphy. Just wonderful. How wonderful this is. Amazing. Okay, well, a double blast of Tolkien. I had no idea this thing was this big. This is pretty much the ultimate version of the scholarly version of The Hobbit. Plus, Tolkien Old English stuff, which we've already seen. We saw a glimpse of this in the month-long reading event that I did with David Wiley and Micah Cummins, where we did multiple translations of Beowulf, and the first one that we did was Tolkien's version, in a volume very much like this, I think with the same editor. So there you go. That is the mail for today. A double blast of Tolkien. And also the new Pervine mystery novel. Great. Fantastic. Don't have a date on these Tolkien things. I think they're out already. But these are finished copies, so if not, they'll be soon. But anyway, that is the mail. That plus Big Canoe News. Just another wonderful mail haul. I don't know how long we can keep this up. But we'll see. Well, the next time I get mail, we'll dive into it together. I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.